So, on this episode of the podcast, I'm chatting with local Vancouver favorite Razzy D. He shares mad tips and techniques to help you improve your footwork on this episode, and he also shares with us his inspirations and what they've taught him. This episode is loaded with references, so you're definitely going to have to check out the show notes for links to everything we talk about on this episode. So, Dean, super chill, one of the most humble guys I know. But let's get into the episode. What's good, guys? Wolvie here, and welcome to the CYPHER. On every episode of the In the CYPHER Bboy podcast, I interview a B-boy or B-girl where they share their knowledge and experiences on the show to help you become a better dancer. Dean, also known as Razzy D, is a b-boy from Vancouver, Canada, representing his crew Filthy Feet and the dance collective Oro Collective. You may recognize Dean as a Massive Monkeys 2016 footwork champ, or from his YouTube channel where he shares his 15 plus years experience with the dance through tutorials as well as deeper discussions about the dance and culture of breaking. Dean is extremely knowledgeable and has a lot to share from concepts and techniques. Now, let's chat with our featured guest, Razzy D. Dean, you ready to get into it?
Yeah, I'm good.
Awesome, man. All right, let's just get started by telling us a little bit more about your personal life and what you like to do outside of breaking.
Let's see. Well, I live in Japan now, so just like getting into that culture is pretty interesting. I'm learning the language every day, so that's a big thing now.
Your house looks pretty dope. Just seeing them on your YouTube videos.
Yeah. So that was given, not given, like it's provided by the city. And we pay part of the rent too. So it's they know foreigners like they're not used to small Japanese houses. So they basically give us a family-sized apartment. So it's pretty crazy. Their family-sized apartment is the same as like a North American regular apartment. It's
That's
pretty, it's,
hilarious.
it's cool though. It's nice having a tatami room.
No, yeah, for sure. I
Yeah.
like the little homes and stuff that they have out there. It's so cool.
Yeah, it's a real trip being out there or out here, I guess. Yeah.
Cool. All right. So, why don't you tell us a little bit more about how you started breaking, how you got into it?
I started like I think it was my last year of high school. One of my friends was a popper, and he thought like I'm like an athletic guy or something. He thought, oh yeah, it'd be good. You'd be good at breaking. So he just kind of got me into that, and he showed me like Mr. Wiggles' website. And it had all this stuff on like just dance in general, but some stuff on breaking. And I kind of got started there, uh, looking up random like tutorials and stuff. And back then there was no YouTube, or YouTube was like just starting, I guess, or I don't even think it existed yet.
Mm.
Um, so I was literally looking at like how to top rock, and it's a description and then like stick figures showing you how to do it, like drawings. So it's pretty pretty bad, but everybody's got
Yeah.
to start somewhere. And yeah, I there was no like online tutorials, so a lot of stuff was learned from like just random videos I found. I don't know if anybody knows like Style to Ouf or Style to Ouf. It's this old French website where you could download videos. So that's like kind of where I started seeing like, actual footage. And then
Cool.
yeah, then I was kind of practicing like by myself in in my house. I didn't want anybody to know. It was very secretive. And then one day my brother found out. He just like randomly saw me. He said, "What are you doing?" And yeah, he found out, and then he was like, "Oh, you should have told me that you did this. A couple of my friends do it." So he introduced me to these two guys that are kind of like older Vancouver dudes, Vancouver b-boys. This guy Chris and Simon.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, from there, I kind of that was like my first practice, I guess. And then yeah, from there I just kept going and meeting new people, and yeah, that's kind of it,
Cool.
I guess.
Cool. And I know you repping Filthy Feet, so I was just wondering, how did that come about?
Yeah. So before that, I didn't really have a crew, and just kind of like a few people that I practiced with, but I got to know a few of them, like just through random practices, and especially Blink. I don't know if anybody remembers Blink. He's still around, but he's like a tattoo. He does like piercing now in Vancouver.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, he was. He would. I used to practice up at UBC, the university, and he would come out there, and then a few other people started coming. I met like guys like Rory and Robin, and like they asked me to enter some battles together, and it's kind of like naturally flowed in. Like I got brought into the crew.
Nice. And I know you have in my opinion, a pretty distinct style. How would you describe your own style?
Well, these days it's kind of changed a lot over the years, but these days
Mm-hmm.
I'm too lazy to do power, so it's like all footwork. It's all footwork now, mostly, and it's the way I describe it. I don't know. I don't want to be too cliche. Like there's that old saying of like be like water,
Mm-hmm.
but the way that I think of it is like literally like waves crashing against something. Like they don't. I like to hide my direction changes and keep flowing and like kind of a continuous motion, I guess. Like one
Mm-hmm.
movement will flow into the next movement, will flow into the next movement. If you think of like a wave crashing into like a cliff or something, the wave doesn't just like hit the wall and then go directly back. It like goes up the cliff and then back down in this. It's still moving, like it's always moving, even though the wave has stopped and crashed into something. Like it's the water is still moving. It's always like flowing in some direction. So I don't know if that makes sense, but it's
Dude, it
kind of how
does.
I
I
see
love
it.
it.
Yeah,
It's kind of like, yeah, still water, but even when it's turbulent, it still flows,
yeah. It's just
still
like
moving.
yeah, try and flow, try and keep moving, or yeah, you kind of think like an infinity sign too. It's like changing direction, but it's always moving.
Yeah, for sure. How did you kind of develop that your direction changes? Because I know they're so strong in your footwork.
Uh, a lot of that comes from meeting Bounce, the
Oh yeah.
underground king. Yeah, like I met him through Rory. And Rory brought him out to Vancouver for one jam, and Rory knew him from like living in Japan. So he, I didn't like train under him, but he did some workshops. He did like a week of workshops. I think it was like every day, 2 hour workshops for a week. And so that was where I first got introduced to like how to how to kind of like hide your directions. And one of the most like influential steps that he taught us was the pump turn. And I
Hmm.
have a tutorial of that. Oh no, yeah, it's in one of the tutorials.
Okay, sweet.
But yeah, that's like one of the most basic ways to change your direction without it being like super obvious. And yeah, and then just
Dope.
like hearing more from him about that kind of stuff. Yeah,
Okay,
and
sweet. I'll
yeah,
try to find that tutorial. I'll put it in the show notes so everyone can check it out.
yeah,
Go ahead.
yeah. It was just like direct. It's called direction changes or something like that. So when you're looking for
Okay, dope. Okay, cool, for sure.
it, yeah.
Is there any more of those kind of hidden gems that you were taught previously and that have like
Um,
had a really big impact on the way you dance?
so that was like early on. that kind of idea blew my mind.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, this one wasn't directly from Bounce, but it was like through. It's weird. It's like through people who were inspired by him. Um, this one Japanese dancer used to live in Vancouver, and she was taught by a guy who's not taught by Bounce, but like heavily inspired or something. And we were just talking about like dancing, and she was saying his mentality is like uh, taking taking an idea like a back footwork step or a front footwork step and turning it into a like reversing it basically. Like you take a footwork step in the front, and then through some movement it becomes a back step, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so.
But yeah, like that kind of thinking of like reversing things, and it's again like changing direction, but not like in a circular way. It's like a front to back kind of direction change.
Right, yeah.
Yeah,
Totally. I
so
can see that in the way that you dance.
yeah. So there's some of those that really inspired me. But then recently, big inspiration in like how to dance has been this group called Tentacle Tribe. And they're not even like a breaking crew. They're like they break. Some of them break, but it's more like a contemporary performance group. But they are my like performance group called the Oro Collective. We brought them in to kind of set a piece for our group, and then they also did some workshops in Vancouver, and like that that got me thinking about like how to use the whole body, like all the way from your head to your toes to your fingertips, and like being aware of every movement that you do. So that was a big turning point too for me.
Cool. Could you go into a little bit more about the fingertips?
Yeah, so like
What do you, yeah.
it's something that like I can't unsee now. Like when people break, or even when if I'm like re-watching footage of myself, like from practice or something, if I'm not moving, like if your hands aren't active, it looks really weird. And once you see it, like you can't unsee it. It looks like people are dancing like halfway.
Dang, interesting.
Yeah, so like yeah, having it goes back to like this whole bit of advice that I got when I was starting out, and it's something that everyone should think about when they break. Is it's like everything you do should look like if someone took a picture, it would look good. So
Right, right, right.
yeah, so what I mean by like even down details down to like your fingertips and how they look is like what what are you doing with your hands? Not just like are you doing something like putting it on your hip or on your forehead or whatever? Like what shape are they taking even when you top rock? Like are they active? Are they doing something? And so that's when like you can start taking something like a simple two step and just adding layers and layers and layers and making that one step look different in a million different ways through like how your hands
Right.
look or what angles you take or what feel you put on it, like that kind of thing. So I hope that helps.
Yeah, no, that's dope. It kind of makes me think of one of the tutorials that you posted. I think it was like a popping or a whacking inspired.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So that was
maybe you
yeah,
can
that
go
was
in
another
a little bit more into that.
yeah, that was another kind of like mentality shift. So when I started, I didn't practice with b-boys. I practiced with poppers. So my friend was a popper, and like some of the first dancers that I met were the Groovy G's. I don't know if you know who they are, but
For
they're kind of
sure.
like the OG popping crew from Vancouver.
Hmm.
A lot of them don't really dance anymore, but some of them are still going. Like Jameson he lives in Japan now, but he's he was teaching like the Groovy Gentleman dance company or something like that. Yeah, he had a bunch of
Yeah,
students.
groovy
But
jam.
yeah, like especially popping was one of those ones where it was like, what shape are you making with your body? What are you doing with your arms? Because a lot of b-boys just focus on their legs, what their legs are doing, what their feet are doing, but they don't really think about like their hands and like hand styles and stuff. So if you study popping, you learn like your hands can create shapes, can help with angles and stuff, and it just it adds extra layers. And then yeah, just meeting other dancers from other dance styles, and particularly whacking. It was like totally different way of using your arms, so that gave me a lot of different ideas and stuff. And I think like just learning other dance styles can help you so much in like especially b-boys and b-girls, because I don't know, I feel like there's a mentality in b-boys and b-girls that like people are really creative, but they're not always like the best dancers. And so there's like a lot of focus on sets and stuff and creating set movements, which is cool, and it really sets breaking apart. But like a lot of the other dances focus on feel and like more details of what shape or what kind of concepts and stuff like that, and you play around with the concept, but you kind of freestyle within that concept. So in some ways it's more free, but I think there's a lot to be taken from like learning other dances, even if you're just dabbling.
Totally. It makes sense to me. And
Yeah,
would you say that that kind of concept helps you create moves as well?
yeah. There's a lot of stuff that I've created. I have that one video that's just kind of like scratching the surface of the stuff that I created from like other dances. But yeah, I think that's a big thing too with like especially the younger generation now, as like breaking's been around long enough that and it's getting big enough that people can are starting to be inspired by like just breaking, which is fine. But like then things start to kind of look the same because you're only looking at one thing. You're only looking at breaking to be inspired by. But when you think about it, like people that started didn't have breaking to be inspired by. They were inspired by like kung fu movies or uh, things other dances from that time, salsa dancing or like what Lindy hopping or just other dances, right? And then
Right.
that helped create breaking. Breaking is like this huge mix of all these other inspirations. So I think it's important for people to keep that going, to be inspired by like not just breaking. It's fine at the beginning, but as you get older, I think it's natural that people will start to branch out, or they should, and look at other things like even outside of dance, shapes of random like things in the world, like a table or the way a building is shaped, or inspired by like what their other interests. If they like games or if they like music, just listening to different kinds of music will influence your dancing a ton.
100%. Yeah, Puzzles was saying that cartoons is a big influence for him. He was talking about Elmer Fudd the other day. So,
Yeah, yeah, like characters come from is a big part of breaking. Like how you move and the way that you move can come from all kinds of places. So
yeah, 100%. I'll link that video in the show notes, guys, so be sure to check it out just to get an idea of what you can do. Like Dean just said, it just kind of scratches the surface. So, um, and I like what you said about the music. I know the music in a lot of your videos is really chill. Is that the kind of music that you normally practice to?
these days, yeah, but like uh, yeah, I kind of want to like change things up just as far as my practices go. Listening to a lot of the same stuff. So part of like the music that I choose partially it's due to like copyright restrictions and stuff like that, but also like most of that music is by people that I know and that I respect. So a lot of it is like from Switch B. He's this
Yeah.
B-boy and producer from Toronto. And like I always feel like, I don't know, this is just me personally maybe, but I want to like promote people doing stuff on their own, like that are taking that chance to do their own thing. I always want to promote that and help them get seen or whatever, even in some small way, or even if they don't need it. But like, yeah, it's a lot of Switch B, a lot of Bless One. Bless One's another DJ that I really respect, and yeah, he always does his own thing.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, right.
Yes, I love his music though.
Yeah, it's definitely, he's got his own style, and if you hear some song, you're like, oh, that's a Bless One. That's a Bless One song, or that's a Bless One kind of like vibe. Even if he didn't make it, it's like his selection is very, very unique.
Very unique, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's cool you say too, like about Switch B. I only know him as a B-boy, but I
Yeah.
started listening to his SoundCloud ever since you've been using his music in your videos.
Oh,
So
awesome. That's
yeah,
good.
so it's working.
Yeah, he's an MC
Cool.
too.
So yeah. So I guess we're talking about your practices. How are you practicing these days? Like, are you drilling a lot of footwork steps, or are you kind of just freestyling to the music?
These days, it's kind of weird, like, because I live alone in like the countryside, so there's kind of no one there. So it's a lot of like solo practices, and it's kind of hard to keep motivated and like practice for a long time. So I used to practice for like 2 hours a few times a week, and now it's like maybe 30 minutes or something, but I try and do like a little bit every day, even if it's just like 5 minutes. So that's
Right.
like these days, yeah, it's less drilling and more just, yeah, a lot more freestyle. It's kind of one thing that I've been working on a lot more, is like trying to break that cycle of, or not cycle, like get used to the discomfort of like not knowing what to do, which is another
Well,
thing I think b-boys and b-girls like rely on too much, is like, yeah, the sets and stuff. Like it makes people look, can't like, but kind of look a little robotic sometimes. So learning to break that cycle and like um, create on the fly is something that's really like I'm trying to do these days. Like a big inspiration for that kind of stuff is like, yeah, Tentacle Tribe. Stuff they do just like in their freestyle is incredible. But another guy that people should know about is this guy named Lance, or Left to Lep, I think is his b-boy name. He's from this guy from Toronto, from Albino Zebras, and like this guy is like pure freestyle, and like the ideas that he comes up with, it's not, he's not the cleanest b-boy, but the ideas that he comes up with and his flow, and it's really crazy and really inspiring. So for anyone curious, like check that guy out. I don't know where you can check him out, but there's some battles
I,
online, or he has an Instagram
yeah,
somewhere.
for sure.
Yeah, and he posts some practice footage sometimes. Yeah, but he's like, it's more his mentality. These days I'm more inspired by people's mentalities than like their movement necessarily. And it was always kind of like that actually. Yeah, I was more
Cool.
inspired by like interviews with people rather than like what's the latest battle and stuff like that. It was like, how do people think? So that's why a lot of the people that I like these days are older generation dancers that speak a lot more, and they talk to you about like what they think is important, what they value, what their approach is and that kind of thing. So I think it's an important aspect to get into, especially if you're a beginner. It's like get into the mentality too. Physical side is important, but like the mental side is just as important.
Right. Okay, cool. Yeah, I'll definitely link something left lab. I know I've seen him on YouTube before, but I'll link up maybe a YouTube or an Instagram video
Yeah,
in the show notes.
yeah.
And maybe could you give an example of? I know you said you like to listen now more than watch, especially when it comes to that to breaking. Can you give an example of something that you took recently?
There's a couple like so one. There's not one in particular from him, but like Po One. Every time you can watch like any of his interviews, and there's tons of gems that you can take from them. Um, but there's one in particular that he goes pretty deep. It's like a 3 or 4 part series from he was at some jam in Poland. I can't remember the name, but like yeah, he goes pretty deep into like creating or the mentality and like one thing that was neat that he got into was learning like the history of the music or the context of the music will give you some idea of like what is it, like the feel. And so when you dance, you can understand that feeling of like the context of that music or where it comes from. And it might change the way you interpret the song or dance to the song or whatever. So yeah. And then there's another one that's not even breaking, but it's pretty relevant. It's like this old Rodney Mullen interview. He's like this old skateboarder, and yeah, he just talks about like how your mentality will change over the years. When he started out, he was skating and entering these competitions, and he wanted to win like 10 competitions in a year, and he did it. And he had all these accomplishments, but at the end of the day, like in his opinion, those things didn't really matter. What mattered was like his just love of creating and skating, like the in a pure sense, like the artistic sense, I guess. Like he just enjoys like getting out, having an idea, and just getting out there and like doing it and trying it out and trying to make it happen. So that was kind of neat. Like competitions are cool and they help things grow and they're important in their own way. But uh, yeah, like if you don't love like what you do, you're it's not going to work for you. Like
Yeah,
competitions are just one part of it. You gotta know like
for
you
sure.
gotta
That's
understand
powerful.
culture
Yeah.
and yeah, they like it's a creative thing, so you gotta love creating to really like keep going with it.
Powerful stuff. That's a really, really good place to wrap this up. A very high point in the interview for sure. Um, uh, yeah, but before I do let you go, maybe you can give one piece of parting advice, maybe for a b-boy who's entered a couple jams but is still trying to find themselves and find them styles, like find their style. What kind of advice would you give to them?
Um, I think the best the best advice obviously is like just to keep going and keep creating, but an important thing to realize, and I think it's like sometimes it's like a Western versus Eastern mentality. Western mentality is like, I want quick results. I want to do this thing. I want it done fast. And like kind of more quote unquote Eastern philosophy is like some things like take time. So it's important to remember that you're doing this dance and you're learning these moves, but some of these things you're just not going to get right away. And like you can practice and practice and practice, and it just won't come. But some things just take time. So be aware of that. Be aware that like your style will not develop overnight, and it will change, and it'll it'll keep evolving, or hopefully it keeps evolving. and that's a good thing. And yeah, just keep creating and keep trying to push your boundaries. Yeah, I don't know. Things take time, so
No, that's perfect. That's so
remember that.
that's perfect. For sure. And you've dropped so much knowledge here on the interview. And if people want to get deeper with you, you also have breaking tutorials on YouTube, but you also do private coaching. You want to get more into that?
Yeah, it's so I have tutorials that I do on YouTube kind of whenever. I try to do at least like once a month, and I also try to post like some practice footage and kind of maybe applying some of these concepts or whatever. But yeah, I also have a Patreon, and if people want to just support, they can do that. Or if they want to go further, I do like, it's kind of like online coaching, I guess. You know, you can get like feedback on your progress or stuff you're working on, or I actually do offer like private lessons if people want that. Yeah, it's all on my Patreon.
Awesome. Yeah, guys, what you heard here on the show just scratches the surface because Dean has a lot to offer. So www.com or www.patreon.com/RazzyF2. Is that right?
Yeah. F2
Awesome. And
is
then,
like filthy feet.
oh, got it.
FF.
Oh, yeah. Patreon.com/RazzyF2. Dope. And then just search up Razzy D on YouTube and you'll find his channel. He's got a ton of tutorials. So
Yeah. Give me a subscribe. Like my videos.
All right, guys.
Comment on them.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, comment on all his videos. So
Yeah. But honestly, like just enjoy it. You don't have to do anything. But if you like it, you know, engage with it. Yeah. That's it.
awesome. All right, guys. You've been hanging out with Dean and your host Wolvie. Head over to inthecipher.com, search Dean or Razzy D in the search bar, and his show notes page will come up with everything we've been talking about today. And it is a ton of stuff, so it's gonna be a lot of links in there. Just want to say thank you, Dean, for sharing your very unique perspective on this dance. This interview was awesome, and your message will reach and inspire so many B-boys and B-girls around the world. So I hope to have you back on the show, but until then, we will catch you in the cypher.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. Anytime.
There you have it, guys. Razzy D. You don't get to hear his voice in his videos. Well, I haven't heard a video with his voice in it. So this is a really great opportunity to get deeper with Dean. He's got a lot to say and a lot of knowledge to share. And I know this because we had another hour-long discussion after we closed off the interview. So I could do longer form episodes, but I like to keep the show as concise as I can. Please let me know what you think. Also, I'm pretty new at the podcasting stuff, so if you got any constructive criticism, let me know on Instagram or something like that. But yeah, please check out Dean's YouTube channel. He's got a ton of tutorials on there. I watch them myself regularly. I haven't missed a single one yet, so also be sure to check out Dean's Instagram, and while you're at it, check us out too on Instagram @_InTheCypher. You know, Dean mentioned a ton of stuff, and as I mentioned, links and a summary of the discussion can be found on the show notes page on our website, inthecipher.com. Yeah, he mentioned a lot of videos, and all of those videos will be linked there. So nice and easy for you. Also, if you have somebody specific, B-boy or B-girl, that you want to be on the show, let me know. Comment on any Instagram post with Dean's photo, and let me know who you want to be on the show and what question you would ask them if you got the chance. Okay, guys, I will catch you there on Instagram, or I'll catch you on the next episode, or I will catch you in the cypher. Take care. Peace.